Hello everyone, my name is Tracy, also known as T, and welcome to my channel of Not Afraid to Color. In today's video, I will walk you through creating this little musical card using a Sizzlits. So I'm going to start out with watercolor paper, and I'm going to start with just some ink smushing. And I'm going to choose Rusty Hinge, and I'm going to choose a little Crackling Campfire, a little bit of Walnut stain. I'm going to get that nice and wet on my little mat and then get my paper wet. And I'm just going to kind of drag it through that color and pick up color. Not a big deal. Everybody knows how to do this. So that's coat one. I'm going to go ahead and get it dried off, and then I will spray it down again with a little bit of water and do some more layers here. So it's going to be quite a layered little piece. And if need be, I'll grab my towel and dab off any excess here. Now let's see here. Let's go in with a little, Seedless preserves here, just to kind of throw in some color. And I'm just kind of moving that around with my fingers so I can get it all over the page. I could stop right there. I think it looks great, but I'm not going to. There's so much more, so much more. So I kind of wanted to combine multiple techniques in today's video, and also just bring up, you know, a product that you may have in your stash and never use because you didn't think you could, and they're called Sizzlits. They are Tim Holtz, and they're decorative strips. I'm going to go in here with a little salvage patina and just throw a little blue on here. By the time it's over, you barely even know these colors are here, so don't worry about it. Play and have fun. Anyway, these strips, I thought I needed the extended cutting pads for them, and so I've never used them. And I have this musical strip and I have a banner strip. And I got to thinking yesterday, now I'm going in dark here with some aged mahogany, by the way. I got to thinking yesterday, I wonder if I could figure out a way to adapt it so I could push that thing through my Vagabond 2 without the extended cutting plates. And sure enough, I can't believe that this thing's been sitting here for a year and I've never used it because I thought I had to have a special piece of equipment. Now, it's probably recommended, you know, that you do use the extended cutting pads for this, but you don't have to, and I had no problems. Now I'm going in here with some ink, the aged mahogany, because I want to go darker. And I'm kind of wanting to stay in the sort of red zone, so to speak. Oh, everybody knows red's my favorite color. So I smush that down and then let it dry. And then, of course, it kind of reacts with the oxides once I've added water. So it does some really trippy stuff that I really like. And I'm just squirting with a little excess water here so that I can get kind of little globbly glooblies. And then I'll dip it some more till I'm happy. And once I'm happy, I'll go ahead and wipe that right off of the mat. It's brand new. This is new to me, my Tim Holtz platform. Typically I used a white one, which was a We Are Memory Keepers. Anyways, I kind of like this one. It's a little smaller than I expected, but that's okay. So I want to go in now with, I'm going to go in with probably, can't find it. I can't find anything today. I'm telling you. Yeah, my embossing folder. So this is the Baroque, and I'll list everything in the description box below. But you see, I'm taking the side that has the flat part. So it would be the side with the black print on it. And I'm going to brayer on with my little Tim Holtz brayer some walnut stains so that I can get that down into the crevices, so that it will, you know, kind of showcase the piece a little better. And I'm going to wet this off camera, and then I'm going to lay it down into the embossing folder and go emboss it. And these run through very nicely. I ran it through 3 times, and I got a really nice, it's, you know, they're 3D folders, so they have different heights, as you can see. Now it's kind of hard to see until you really start to accentuate those, or you do it like white on white. So I'm going to take my tarnished brass paint and I'm just going to put a little bit on my mat. I'm going to roll it out with my brayer. I got a little too much paint there, so my brayer is struggling. And I'm just brayering over the top. And if you can see, what it's doing is it's putting this kind of gold color down onto just the raised pieces, further accentuating the design. And I just kind of go back and forth with my brayer, not pressing too hard because I don't want it to accidentally get down into the crevices, but there you go. Now you've got all that shine, and I just wanted to show you can just pull this off, spray it down, wipe it off, and I purposely sprayed water over my paint there because I'm not going to waste that paint. No, this paint ink smushes beautifully. So, you know, and I'll find a way to use that in some, maybe not this project, but some project. I'm going to go ahead and dry it and then grab some more. I put a couple layers on there. I really love these paints, by the way. Yeah, no, I don't have the new stuff yet. A few days probably. Then I'll do a demo. Let me go ahead and wipe up and we'll get started on the next step. Okay, so now I've got that paint is dry. And I'm going to take my aged mahogany crayon, if I can find it in this mess, and I'm going to accentuate the deeper parts. And the way that you do that is I have this little stiff brush. You could use any stiff brush, but this one works really well for this purpose. And I'm going to grab a piece of paper towel and I'm going to set it aside and get it ready. And I'm going to go into some of those little areas, just kind of skimming on the top, and then I'm going to rub in with this brush. So that's going to spread that crayon out, and then I'll take and go over top with my damp paper towel to wipe that crayon off my gold paint. And then I'm just going to go into a few more areas here with the aged mahogany. Kind of random, willy-nilly, kind of not. You know, if you're looking at your embossed piece, you can see where pieces would normally be quite dark. So I just put more crayon on, rub it in, then take my paper towel on a clean spot and buff off of the gold paint. Now I will end up putting another coat of gold paint over this because there were some spots that I missed as I put too much paint down and my brayer didn't pick up the paint as well as I'd hoped. So you see me just buffing that out, and now I've got all those little dark areas. So I'm just going to do a few little areas at the top. Kind of just willy-nilly, not really. I mean, there's definitely a method here, but I'm keeping the aged mahogany all towards the center of the design. And here I'm just wiping off that crayon off of that paint again. And now I'm going to go in with some walnut stain crayon. I already had my crayon out, so as you can see, I got a piece over there off to the side that I wasn't happy with. So you saw I just kind of went around the outside edges there. And I'm just blending that in. And I do have this sped up because, you know, would be a really long video if I didn't. So pretty much, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I just sort of centered it with the aged mahogany, and I'm doing the edges with the walnut stain. And so you see those colors we made turned into something altogether different, didn't they? Just do a little bit more wiping here. There's so many fun things you can do with these textured papers. So many fun things. But I do need to trim this down. So I'm going to trim it to 4 1/4 by, or 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, now I've got my piece all trimmed down, and I can see the design pretty well. But what I want to do is I really want to bring back out that gold in more places. So I'm putting my brayer back on. I'm going to grab just such a tiny, just a drop of this paint here, so that I can get enough on my brayer, because if you get too much, the brayer just slippy slides. But see, now it's rolling through and it's covering the roller. So just kind of brayering back in some of that tarnished brass goldish color to kind of highlight the whole kind of Baroque design here. Now that piece is almost done, but there's one more thing I want to do. But first, I'm going to clean up again with my same piece of paper and get some more of that yummy gold goodness on there. I love that. It's so pretty. You just set that aside here. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe that off from there. And was, of course, looking for my rag because it, even as big as it is, it likes to grow legs. And I'll go ahead and clean off the roller because I don't need it again for a minute. And put it back together and put it away because I kept saying I would clean up as I go, but as you see, I've got a pile of junk around me. All right, I'm sorry. It is what it is. You know, I'm recording. I just want to be recording. So what I have now here is this little Sizzlet, and it is probably about 13 inches long. So if you're going to use an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, it would not be long enough for it. What I use for this stuff is called Texture Roll. It's from Sizzix. And this happens to be a piece of gold, but it's got this leather color and it's really tough, but it cuts beautifully. It stains. This is the coolest product. I love this stuff. And I had a roll that was just that tan, but I used it all. So I'm just going to use the tan side of the gold. And so what you're going to do here is I'm going to measure out, I'm going to lay it against the piece of texture roll and measure it out and cut my piece. What's important to remember here is because we're going to be going 2 ways to tape that thing down, because if you don't, it might slide on you and you won't get a good cut because you have to go through the machine. It doesn't cut the whole thing, then you have to scoot it down and cut it the rest of the way. And I won't show that because I can't bring my vagabond over here. My cord won't reach. But so you basically cut out your texture roll or whatever you're going to use. You could use 12 by 12 paper, whatever you want. It's your toy, it's your project. You don't even have to use this. You can use anything else. But this is sort of like a steel roll die. So I'm looking here at my signature and I know that it's backwards, right? So I know that I want to lay the part I want facing up down against it. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to grab some mint tape and I'm going to tape it down on both sides so that when I push it through the other way, it stays put and I don't get those, you know, those weird double cuts that you get, like sometimes if you run your die through the machine more than once. So I'm going to use tape to ensure that that stays put, doesn't move on me. And I know the mint tape won't lift the surface of the texture roll. Not that it matters because I'm not going to be using that side, but you know, it is something I know. So then I'm going to lay that down and fold it over there and I'll go send it through my machine and I'll see you when I come back through. So what I'm explaining there is how you do it half at a time, basically. Do it one side, flip it, do it the other side, and I use my backwards forwards on my Vagabond too for that. So I just flip it over and then send it backwards through the other way. But you'll see here that this stuff just cuts amazingly. Look at that, it's gorgeous. Oh, you could use the gold side if you wanted to, but I didn't want to. I'm going for a more of a rustic look here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all the little pieces out, and I'll come back when I'm done because you don't need to sit there and watch me pick things. That's just boring, right? Be back in a minute. All right, I've got it all cut out, and you notice that one of them is a little darker. That is because I used my Walnut Stain Distress ink to distress it, you know, make it a little bit darker. And, you know, that just kind of illustrates that this stuff can be inked up. It doesn't tear easily at all. It will fold or bend, and it will get creases in it. So, you know, I want to be mindful of that, but it doesn't tear. It's really tough. So I'm going to use the piece that I already started staining, and I'm just going to do the edges here. And here's a piece that I did. This one I did with all kinds of metallics, and I'll find a project to match it. It's probably going to go in my junk journal on a couple of different pages. So I'm just distressing out this piece of texture roll that I've cut out, getting it ready for the rest of my card. So see, it's going to go on 2 places. And then what I need to do here is I'm going to do some more embossing with a different embossing folder. So this is the Doily corner embossing folder. Again, I'll link everything down below because I'm terrible with names when I'm doing a voiceover. But I'm going to run that through my machine. And when you come out, and I don't care if it's messy because I'm about to mess it up, you get that beautiful lacy type texture on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my little flat box and I'm going to get my antique linen spray, and here's me looking for it. I had my husband put up a light in here, and I put things away so that he wouldn't break anything, and then I can't find anything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just douse this thing with the antique linen, and I'm wanting it to pull up around the edges like it's doing. That's exactly the look I'm looking for because it'll give it that added dimension. And I will dry this some with my dryer and then set it aside to let it complete drying. But what you're not going to want to hear is about how you're going to fussy cut this, so I won't tell you until it's time. Yes. Okay, it's nice and dry. This piece is dry. What I want to do is I want to enhance this, and I'm going to paint around the edges, kind of in a sort of a sloppy fashion, with the same paint. And you see how I'm just kind of laying the paint on, and I do want it to kind of go over the front a little bit. And I'll just paint around all 4 corners there. And I'm also going to be painting just a little bit of the back side as well. And that's because I will be raising this panel up. And when it's raised up, I don't want you to see the white underneath. So I'll just flip it over, carefully holding it, and need a little bit more paint here. And I'll just paint, you know, probably 3/8 of an inch on the back side. Most of that will be covered by foam tape or not even seen at all, but it just in case. You know, I want it to look like it's, you know, a gilded piece of art or whatever. A gilded card. You could skip this step if you wanted to. I just think it's one of those added touches, and I'm just going to set it aside, and I'm going to leave my paint there because I need to do the matting layer. And I want the matting layer to kind of look like a frame in an antique photo. So I'm going to cut it down to card front size, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. Trying not to touch my already wet paint. And I'm going to take my paintbrush and grab a little bit more paint here. And I want to dab that paint in. I want it to have some texture. I only want to have 1 coat because it'll look worn because it's, you know, the black still shows through. So I'm just going to go around all 4 of the corners there in, you know, 1/2 inch or something, because this is going to be the matting layer. And you notice that I'm tapping the brush on there so that I get those kind of brush strokes. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to grab up all this yummy goodness of this paint here on my little piece that I'm working on. So you get some bonus stuff there. And I'll go ahead and, just in the interest of time, wipe this down. And a little hand sanitizer just to get all the paint off. It's already getting dirty. I can see that. It's great because it's white, but it's not great because it's white. So I'm going to put both of these back into my little splat box, and now I'm going to start doing some spatters. So I'm going to start with the with some black paint and a fan brush, and I'm going to be using the Tim Holtz. This is the old school one, so I'm just going to pour a little bit out, and this stuff is super watery, so you don't need to water it down. I'm just going to tap my brush in, tap it off, and then I'm just going to tap in little itty bitty places all over both pieces, just so it gets that kind of dirty moldy look. Yeah, we're going for dirty moldy on a nice clean card. So I'm going to wipe that black off. I don't want to smush it into anything. Not interested. I mean, it might be cool, but it might make mud, and I don't want to make mud on my beautiful golden pieces. Now I've got the tarnished brass, and I'm just putting a drop down and watering it down and getting a new fan brush, getting it wet, and I'm going to just splatter some gold splatters on. And I realize it's probably kind of hard to see. I had just zoomed out quite a bit there. All right, so I cut out the part where I cut out this word, but I did cut out this word. It is from a Tim Holtz set. And I cut out the shadow layer with the texture roll, and then I cut out the colored with aged mahogany, a piece of just white cardstock, and then cut out the word create. And I'm going to take the walnut stain with my little brush here, and I'm just going to brush all around the outside edges of the word, just to kind of, eliminate white spaces and give it kind of a, continuance of that antique look. And then I'm going to take my brush and start to do it with a brush, but I find out probably easier to do with my foam pad because I want it fairly well colored in. I want it pretty dark. So I just go around the edges of that, and then I'm going to take and move my little sticky thing, and you'll see that's how that's going to go onto there. And I'm going to use artist tack to stick it on. Again, looking for my artist tack, of course. You know me and trying to find things again, and I'm still finding drywall dust that I thought I got all cleaned up after he installed that light for me. But I'll go ahead and just peel back the backing of the artist tack, fight with it. I use the same piece multiple times, but I can't find, I put the piece aside and I can't find it, so that's just me. Just lay that on the sticky side and then just burnish it down, and I'll take my bone folder and burnish it a little bit more, and then flip it over and burnish the other side so I can make sure I get those sticky dots all over it. And then I just roll the paper and gently pull the sentiment off with my tweezers. And then I'll set the sentiment down onto the shadow layer, and I like to line up the center first and then go to the end pieces, because the little paper likes to bend on you. And then you just want to give it a good push. You can flip it over and burnish it, whatever. This is going to glue onto this piece. Come on, stick. You can do it. Yeah, let's burnish that bad boy down a little more. So I'm going to be gluing this onto this lace piece, and I'm going to pick right about here. And then I'll be doing, once it's dry, I'll be doing my fussy cutting. So I'm going to grab just my Reptile Adhesive and going to put a pretty generous amount of glue on here because we are working on a textured surface. So I want to make sure that the glue hits where it needs to hit. And I think I want it right about there. And I'm just going to set something heavy on it and let it dry. Okay, while that's drying, here we've got our textured piece and we've got our music pieces. And I'm going to glue the music pieces onto this textured piece. And I will be using just again my Reptile Adhesive to glue it down. And I'll glue it down and then trim it off versus trying to get the right size in the first place. Because, yeah, it's just kind of the way I roll. I'm just laying glue all along here. Just kind of getting an eyeball measurement because I don't need to waste a bunch of glue. Yeah, looks about right. Now to get this laying on here even, I'm going to grab my T-ruler and decide where I want it to go. So that's squared. So do I want an inch down? Not quite. I think I'll go 3/4 of an inch from the top. And then just make sure that's on there nice and straight and let that piece dry before I start trimming off the end. All right, that's dry. Now let's go ahead and trim off that edge. And then I'm going to take and wipe off my glue here and do the second edge. And now I'm trying to decide how I want it to go. I think I want it to go the way the signature should go. So I'm going to glue it down that way. Basically the same procedure here while we wait for our Create to dry on its doily. Just sort of eyeballing how far out it needs to go. I do want the glue to go a little bit beyond because, you know, I have to trim some off. And this one I'm just going to eyeball when I lay it down. All right, let's set that aside to dry and let's grab this. And I'm going to start doing my fussy cutting. So I'm going to cut out the bottom all around the letters. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of, you know, willy-nilly. And you could leave, you know, more on if you wanted to. And then I'm going to cut it straight across. And then I'm going to fussy cut around the doily. And I spared you the torture of that and did it off camera. And what I want to do here now is I want to add some deepen the edges of that doily so that it really stands out. And you could certainly skip this part. I just thought this was, I wanted to use this piece. It's such a cool piece. This Doily embossing folder. I got so many ideas for that, so many. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess off of that piece. And then I've got one piece, two pieces. Now I need to go and grab my background piece, my basically my matting layer. And I'm going to use a piece of fun foam that already has some sticky on it. But I need to grab a black card base because I'm going to glue this first to a black card base. So you kind of got to do things in order here. You don't want to glue the fun foam piece onto the panel first, and you don't want to glue the sentiment on first either. So you just kind of do them in a logical order where everything has a chance to dry while you're doing something else instead of wasting time watching paint dry. So we're gonna stick this one on and want to make sure that the beginning of our signature, our 4/4, is on the right side and right side up. And I'm going to take my little piece of fun foam and I'm going to trim it down to 3 3/4 by 5. So it's got, you know, a little bit of room, you know, between the edges of the panel. Ugh, sorry, my eye keeps watering. I'm going to pull the sticky off of that, but I'm also going to use glue because it's going to be sticking to, again, a textured surface. So there needs to be a lot of surface adhesion. And so therefore I'm going to use extra adhesive because plus that, this is kids foam. I don't necessarily trust the adhesive to hold. So I'm just going to lay that down, and I don't care if it's purple. It doesn't matter. You're not really going to see it, and if you do, it's going to be purple. Who could complain about that? Then I'm going to glue this piece down to the whole card base that has the matting layer on it. And I'm going to also use adhesive for this. This stuff isn't double-sided. It only has sticky on one side. I'm going to lay that down there. I'm just going to kind of hold it and, you know, move it to the position it needs to be. That's the other beauty about this foam stuff, is that you do have wiggle room with it before the glue takes hold. There's no added adhesive on it to, you know, get in your way or hamper that. So we're just gonna kind of hold that down there with a little bit of weight, and then I'm going to be putting this create piece on. And you can use any word you want. I don't have a lot of sentiments that I'm crazy about. I just never think to buy them. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and trim out this piece here because I don't want it hanging over the edge. And I want to trim it before I glue it down because of the nature of the kind of glue that I'm gonna be using. So this is my silicone glue, and I squeeze it from a tube into this little injector thing. And I'm putting it so that it has some height to it. If you can see, this would be the equivalent of foam tape. Just a lot easier. And I'm going to carefully lay that down without squishing it down. And then start thinking about some sort of embellishments for it. And I could have put them on under the word as well, but nah, I think I'm good the way I am. I'm just making sure it's straight. And the cool part about this silicone stuff is you can lift it still. It has a good long drying time. I mean, it'll grab. See, this is the other one I made. It'll grab, but you know, definitely it doesn't, you don't want to manhandle it or anything. So I have these feathers from my mother's collection. When she used to collect them, and she made purses and stuff. And she just got all kinds of feathers. And when she passed away, I got all her stuff because, yeah, basically the only kid. So I'm going to use some of those feathers in this card because I just think they're so pretty. And see how that silicone is still wet enough for me to stick a feather in there. And I can still lift it back up if it accidentally pushed down. So there's one. I'm going to grab another, and I'm going to put it down towards the bottom. And I'm just stuffing them up in there, kind of within the silicone. Just make sure this kind of gets lifted. And then there's these wispy feathers that I absolutely love. I don't know what kind of bird it is. Probably ostrich. I think they're ostrich feathers. I don't know for sure. Tell me in the comments below if you know what kind of feather this is. But oh, they're so pretty. So I'm going to trim it off because it's obviously way too long. And I'm going to just lay it next to this other feather here. Just a wispy bit that you could barely even see. Just to kind of give it that little bit of nostalgic feel or something. I don't know. Just wanted to use them. And I think what we'll do, you see, I'm still messing around with this, making sure that it's kind of at the same height, because you can lift it and it'll stretch. Fun stuff to work with. It's called toll. It's for toll painting. I don't know if you can see the dimension in there. No, I didn't really tip it right so you could, but there's a bit of dimension. All right, let's find us some gems on here. Oh, let me see here. Let me grab my itty bitty teeny tiny gems. I don't want anything wild or big. And let's audition a couple of colors and see how we like them. And I'm going to stay in the same color range because I want them to be subtle. And let's grab the yellow colored ones and see. No, I don't want it in the doily. Let's go up into the pattern design. Lay those two down, see how I like them. They're okay, I'm not mad. But I want to audition this kind of more of an amber gold color. Yep, I think I like the amber gold. So I'm going to just move these two pieces aside and I'll pick them up later or they'll fly everywhere, whatever happens. And I'm going to choose a couple of pieces of the amber gold. Yeah, and this pencil sometimes is a war too. Just having to decide where I want to put the pieces now. I'm only going to put 3 on, so, and they're small, so they have to be impactful. So I'm going to attempt to lift this with my left hand and lay it back down, and of course it's gonna get stuck to the pencil and flip over on me, or I can't flip it back. Oh, these things make me crazy. I'm glad they don't have any sticky on them already. You know, the kind you buy that already have sticky on them? Hate those because, yeah, they stick everywhere but where I need them to stick. Okay, stick. There you go. There you go. Thank you for behaving. Next. The less glue you put with these, the better, because if the glue's super wet, it just won't stick down. It just wants to stick to your wax pencil. So even sometimes if you just let it dry. But anyway, there we go. We've got some jewels. We've created this little card that, you know, is just colorful and whimsical and different. And I don't know, looking at it from here, that piece sort of looks like corn. But hey, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel. I want to thank you so much for watching, and y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.